Hey, welcome to Casual Yelling. Before I actually do the intro to the actual show of Casual Yelling, I'm just here to let you know that this is a split episode where there is a video component to this episode with Visual Concepts Bryan Williams talking about WWE 2K26. That is free up on my Patreon, patreon.com/I'm Matt Elfring, where you can see Bryan judge and discuss my terrible pitch for showcase mode next year, where it's about wrestlers I have created in the past. So you're kind of getting the interview portion of this episode, which there is no video element that you will ever need or want to see. Do you want to see me in my office on the back of my arcade cabinets? Probably not. Anyways, enjoy this episode. It's a little bit shorter because there is like 15 minutes of video on Patreon. Patreon.com/I'm Matt Elfring with 1T. It's free. Like, I just put free videos up there before I put them on YouTube. Anyways, showtime. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, and as your wise man, I'm here to bestow upon you the wisdom that you're listening to Casual Yelling with some jerk named Matt who likes to yell casual.
Welcome to Casual Yelling, casual conversation podcast filled with, I think 95% less yelling this week. I'm Matt Elfring. I am joined by one of my favorite people that I talk to on a yearly basis, Visual Concepts Bryan Williams. Bryan, how are you today?
Matt, I'm doing fantastic. I'm so glad to be back talking to you yet again about another release of WWE 2K26.
This podcast was pretty much restarted just so I could talk to you.
Is that right?
3 months.
Oh man, well the honor is all mine, man.
No, yeah, we're gonna get this right out of the way because there's 6 news sites listening to the beginning of this podcast, and they want the dirt. So here we go. Okay. Why isn't this thing from 20 years ago in the game anymore?
Well, at Visual Concepts, we're always looking ahead and not backwards when it comes to the franchise.
Perfect. Why isn't every Charles Wright character in this game?
Well, Charles Wright is a very, valued member of the WWE, community and family. And, he's got a plethora of characters. And who's not to say that, one of those several will make a return in the game in the near future. You
never know. How was the process of coming along with this game for you creatively? Because I know you got with 2K games and WWE franchise, you're kind of trying to include something new, kind of pump up the game because it's coming out every year.
Yeah, honestly, because it's like I spent half of my time between 25 and 26. Like when 26 officially got off the ground, myself and I will say maybe half of the team were still, supporting 2K25. So we were double dipping in both, because with, added content to the island, of course, the regular DLC that we do. So I stayed on 25 a little bit longer than most, while at the same time, helping the team and doing what I can to support 26. But it's kind of become the new normal.
Yeah.
And I love it. It always keeps me busy with something to do. And, thankfully it's, what I do is something that I love doing. But it did get into a point where I would forget what game was what. I'm like, wait a minute, whatever this is for. Okay, this is for 25. It was just, I had to get better at compartmentalizing, separating one game from the other. But working on 26, like I knew it was that we had something kind of magical on our hands, when we sat down, at least from the gameplay side of things, to kind of spec out, okay, what's going to be our kind of big ticket item this year? And, my coworker, Jason Vandiver, principal game designer, he leaned in and he mentioned, hey, we really should go back to, really having an emphasis on the ragdoll, improving our physics across, the board, getting rid of these invisible barriers. Kind of like we had in the older games when the SmackDown versus Raw. Specifically, SmackDown versus Raw 2011 was a game where we leaned in hard with just upping the ante with the physics and the ragdoll. And sadly, that kind of went away in the ensuing years. But we were like, no, we need to bring that back. And we started, it was like our first step, right? Because we can't, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so this year we definitely just focused on, one, those invisible barriers on ledges, everything like that. And just improving our fall reactions, whether that's being tossed off a ledge, off the side of a Hell in a Cell, but then how you fall and how you bump, to make that less scripted and kind of get rid of the visual fatigue of seeing the same animation over and over again, where you see the clips on Twitter that people are sharing. You get some wacky bumps now, which I think people are really gravitating to. And as a wrestling fan, yeah, I mean, everybody loves to see a good pratfall, a good bump. I mean, that's what wrestling is all about. So just really happy with the reception that it's gotten so far, and just pleased and very happy for my team, all of VC. I think all of us, we did a damn thing this year, I think.
Yeah, that's what, I think it was last year that I noticed that, because my son and I play every single night. But one of the things he found funniest, which I didn't notice at first until he mentioned, is when you threw a weapon at Mr. Perfect, he would oversell. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it's something I noticed in this year's game. Everybody's selling, not everybody's selling differently, but there's more than, the few animations that we're seeing, which, if I felt like it kept the matches fresh, and I laughed a little bit more. And that's what I want to do, is laugh playing the games.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because we actually did, when we introduced Mr. Perfect, what was that, 2 years ago on DLC?
Yeah.
We definitely, and I forget exactly which attacks, but we specifically captured some, Mr. Perfect specific cell reactions, because, I mean, Kurt Hennig was the master at selling and taking bumps. So we did sprinkle some of that in there for him.
I'd also say, because there are a lot of improvements within, you can't spam reversal anymore, but it's not at it's not at the old system, which I wasn't the biggest fan of you have 5 reversals, so everyone holds on to 1. You kind of have the fatigue system, which I hated at first. Completely. Now I'm in love with it because it just makes sense. You just can't have reversal fest, which my son and I have normally. Right.
I'm glad you've I mean, look, anytime we introduce a big change, it's going to kind of get a big reaction across the board. But I think one thing to keep in mind, and one of the reasons why we did it, is that, and that's why, that's the one thing that separates what we do in our game from a fighter, is that this is pro wrestling. Even in a squash match, the person doing the squashing will take a couple of hits. Mm-hmm. Pro wrestling is not a combat sport where, you go into a match and nothing happens to you at all. I mean, sometimes you got to take a bump. Sometimes you got to absorb a strike. And the new system that we've introduced, it just kind of adds a little more, strategery with that, where it's is it worth me reversing this stomp versus me saving my fatigue, eating the shots, and kind of, conserving my stamina in order to counter, my opponent's, signature finisher or another bigger attack. So, and being able to weigh that and balance that, as you're playing, to me, just adds to the fun of it all.
Yeah. And I would say, I have noticed, I feel like taunts are a lot more worthwhile in this game, because as your stamina meter drains, as you do both taunts, that stamina meter moves up a lot quicker.
Yeah. But to your point, taunting now also just helps fill up your stamina that much faster too. Because it allows some pacing. Put a couple of attacks in, take the time, taunt to the audience, refresh that your stamina, meter, and on you go.
Well, it also stacks. So every time I play my son, even though he reverses the hell out of me, toss him out of the ring, both taunts, get up there, and then I let him beat me, because otherwise he'll get very upset.
Yeah, and I will say, I even put out a tweet for those who who don't like the default settings of the stamina. I don't know how many people actually go into our options, menu. But if anybody who's purchased 2K26 or even 25, take a little bit of time to go into our options. I think you'll be surprised at the depth of things that you can control, change, customize. So for those who think that the stamina is it consumes too much, we do have sliders in there where you can control how much stamina is lost as well. So, but even I who work on the game, I'm like, I just marvel at how you can literally control every aspect of your experience. You don't like the blood splatter effect, you can turn it off. You don't like whatever. There's a toggle or a switch for it.
Yeah, referee meter. I don't want to get disqualified, kicked out. Blood on it. I hate I love button mashing for submissions. That's always been that's my go-to back to Nintendo 64. I need to button mash. Yeah. So the meter for me, as a man in his 40s still playing a game, I can't do the circle thing. You know, like that's just not for me. So like that's the first thing I do. But once I get into those options, this sounds so ass kissy. But like once I get into the options and just realizing the amount of depth of control that the player has is ridiculous. And that's just excluding the AI sliders as well.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and it's not ass kissery at all. That's just the truth.
But like it sounds like I have like, oh, I got Bryan coming on the show. Like I better praise the game.
That is not what we do when I'm on your show. That is not what we do.
No.
But no. But you're right though. Like we have a plethora of options, and then presentation. I mean, we've got categories and options for everything. So. Yeah, for anybody listening to this who's got the game, just go in there and give it a spin, see what's in there. You might be surprised. So
we longevity of 2025 was a big thing compared to 2024, where you're putting out DLC throughout the entire year. Like
island content. It was a lot. My faction, content. It was just. This franchise is like the post office, man. It's like, although the mail may not be delivered on Sunday, that doesn't mean there's not somebody in the warehouse making sure that it's ready to go out that Monday. And that's kind of how we operate right now.
Yeah, and we have Ringside Pass this year, premium and free tiers. This is planning on running out through the year. Aside from DLC, what I've seen in most of the from what I've unlocked, I'm at like tier 30 something at this point. Are you planning on having more secondary content outside of the DLC characters like we've already seen with season 1?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was taking the DLC characters out of it, which will be included in these premium tiers and everything. Yeah, I think for looking forward to the rest of the seasons, you're going to see a lot more my faction personas, some sprinkling of new moves. I don't know if you remember, we used to have like that moves pack DLC back in the day. So we've kind of incorporated an element of that. It's not a DLC dedicated unto itself, but for each season there will be some brand new moves that we're sprinkling in that players can unlock, as well as just cool stuff for the island, stuff for Critter Superstar, new parts and all that kind of cool thing. So we're not just solely focused on the characters of it all, even though the characters are a big part. We've got a lot of cool content, and then we do have some characters that I can't mention now that will be a pretty big talking point.
Look at you trying to talk around
that. We've got some cool stuff coming down the pike, but and again, and the Ringside Pass is something new for us, and we've hear the feedback and everything, and we are, taking everybody's feedback into account internally, and, we'll make adjustments and pivots when necessary and needed.
Well, Bryan, thank you very much for talking to me and our yearly tradition, which I'm just going to try to make like every 4 months now. I think that's what's going to happen. But thank you for coming on.
Or three even. Hey, I love coming and talking to you, Matt.
Or tomorrow. But Bryan, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you as a human being.
Ditto, Matt. Like I said, it's always a pleasure coming on, talking to you, being on your show. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
If you're gonna yell, be passionate about it. Why does he yell casually? I don't understand the whole premise of this to begin with. Why am I being recorded for someone that yells casually?